The other thing is that the composer of this game, Howard Dosen, also worked on Sonic 3 and Knuckles
video. However,
so that's something that Sonic fans will appreciate.
That's taking
Howard
a long
Dosen
time.
wanted the game to
And
have
I want to
a
make some content
rock
for you
style,
guys in the meantime. And someone
thus
recommended me I
explaining
check out
this game's more rock-heavy soundtrack.
So of course, I did. Especially since I grew up.
If you're
with this
wondering
game.
what tracks Howard Dosen did in Sonic 3 and
review
Knuckles,
the game.
here's two of them.
You see, growing up in the 2010s, you would think my gaming experience would have been filled with modern consoles, but no, because my dad didn't like video games, I had a Sega Genesis, which was my main machine. While I eventually, as I got older, got a DS, then a 3DS, and then a Switch at like the age 15 in the year 2020, the Genesis remained the backbone of my gaming world. To this day, I still dive into its library quite often. I was hooked on Mortal Kombat, Sonic 1 and 2, and even Sonic 3D Blast. But one of my absolute favorites was Comix Zone. It had everything. A unique visual style, tight gameplay, and an interesting story to my young mind. Yet, despite all the hours I spent with it, I never actually beat the game as a kid. Now, we're gonna fix that childhood mistake. It's time to finally complete Comix Zone and review it properly. Comix Zone was created by Sega Technological Institute programmer Peter Marvovik. I'm just going to refer to him as Peter from now on, as I cannot pronounce his last name for the life of me. Many of Peter's fellow Sega Technological Institute developers were comic book fans and made monthly trips to the local comic book shops. He came up with the idea for Comix Zone when him and his coworkers were going to one of these shops near the Sega Technological Institute. And he thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you punched your way through a comic book? So, Peter made a demo for the game on the Amiga called Joe Pencil Trapped in the Comix Zone and presented it to the Sega Technological Institute head, Roger Hector, in December 1992. Hector was enthralled by the concept and is quoted saying, "The minute I saw it, I knew it was going to be great." He encouraged Peter to pitch it directly to Sega of America CEO Tom Kinskey, I believe is the guy's name, who approved it. Although Kinskey wanted development to begin immediately, Comix Zone was placed on hold so the Sega Technological Institute could work on Sonic Spinball, as Sega wanted to have a Sonic game available for the 1993 Christmas shopping season. So, as Spinball neared completion, production began in full swing for Comix Zone. The initial protagonist was Joe Pencil, a geeky-looking character who Peter based on the classic comic book archetype of a scrawny kid getting transformed into a powerful superhero. However, Sega's marketing team didn't like this at all. So, he was renamed Sketch Turner, and Peter, a fan of the Smashing Pumpkins, redesigned him to resemble a grunge rocker. Also, the marketing team demanded, against Peter's wishes, that Sketch have a sidekick, a popular trend in gaming at the time. Peter did not want Sketch to be followed around by a human or a large animal, so he conceived Roadkill, since a rat didn't take up a lot of screen space, and he could do quite a bit with it in terms of the puzzles and such. The marketing department felt the pet rat was an awkward choice, but his fellow developers supported it. Thus, the rat Roadkill was born. A very useful little guy when it comes to Comix Zone gameplay, as I will explain later. So 2 things I want to bring up. First is that during development, when STI sent Comix Zone to Sega of Japan for review, they got this response in return: that the game embodies everything that was wrong with American culture. Hewland, one of the developers, said the team took that as high praise. The other thing is that the composer of this game, Howard Dosen, also worked on Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So that's something that Sonic fans will appreciate. Howard Dosen wanted the game to have a rock style. thus explaining this game's more rock-heavy soundtrack. If you're wondering what tracks Howard Dosen did in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, here's 2 of them. Comix Zone was released for the Sega Genesis in mid-1995. The reason to say mid is because there seems to be some conflicting sources as to its exact release date. So I'm just going to say mid-1995. However, it did release after the Saturn and PlayStation. So this would probably explain why the game didn't sell well at launch, as many people were focusing on the newer hardware. However, it did receive a port to Windows 95, as Microsoft at the time, as we saw with my last Doom video, was trying to promote Windows 95 as a legitimate gaming platform. I unfortunately don't have any footage of the Windows 95 version of Comix Zone, but I still thought you'd find it interesting. At its core, Comix Zone follows Sketch Turner, a comic book artist who, thanks to a freak lightning strike, gets sucked into his own creation. His antagonist, Morbus, is now free in the real world, but in order to manifest, he needs to eliminate Sketch. Why is all this happening? Does it make any sense? No! And who knows? So what's his plan? What does he do? Toss Sketch straight into the world of his own comic. Why? Who knows? Thus forcing him to fight his way through panel after panel to escape. The game's storytelling is handled through comic-style text bubbles, giving it a really immersive panel-by-panel experience. It's a fun concept, but surprisingly, the most detailed bits of the story are buried in the manual. According to it, the setting is in a future ruled by the New World Empire, and Morbus is a fugitive with unclear motivations. Presumably something nefarious, but what is it exactly? Who knows? Yeah, get ready to hear that a lot. Either way, the premise works, setting up a visual, engaging adventure where Sketch literally punches his way out of his own imagination. Yeah, I've had a few dreams like that. Why? Who knows? As far as gameplay goes, at first glance, and from a lot of internet opinions I've seen, Comix Zone appears to be a straightforward beat-em-up, but there's a surprising amount of depth here, especially if you actually read the manual. Most people claim it's a mindless brawler, but that just means they missed the details and didn't read the manual. For starters, the game has a wide variety of attacks, combos, and even grappling moves, despite only having one attack button. Trick lies in using the directional inputs with the D-pad to change attacks and mixing them into fluid combos. Enemies will block you, but smart players will adjust their attack angles to land hits more effectively. The manual actually suggests doing so. The game also makes full use of the Genesis 6-button controller. The top 3 buttons allow you to use items, each assigned to a specific slot, like knives, bombs, grenades, and even this awesome Power Blast. And in the option menu, you can even reassign your block button to a special move, unlocking things like the Macho Yell, which does absolutely nothing, but exists for those who just want to taunt their enemies. Also, before we talk about the endings, the soundtrack in this game is absolutely awesome. I love this game's soundtrack. The Genesis is capable of producing some awesome tunes. Take a listen. Now let's get this out of the way. Comix Zone, especially by today's standards, is hard. Really hard. But the difficulty isn't just unfair, it's actually built into the game's design. For instance, punching barrels actually damages you, which forces you to think about using explosives instead. Roadkill, your pet rat, is arguably the most useful tool in the game. He can snuff out hidden paths, uncover items, and even attack enemies. Hilariously, female enemies will literally freak out and jump off screen when Roadkill gets near. The game is also short. A skilled player can beat it in about 30 to 45 minutes. Once they stop getting their ass handed to them. But the replay value is strong. There are multiple routes, hidden rooms, and environmental interactions. Like this room right here, which I didn't know until my second playthrough of the game after I got the bad ending and wanted to go for the good ending. Yeah, I didn't know this room existed until this playthrough. It definitely keeps things fresh. Another thing I found out is during the first boss fight, you can actually push a burning barrel towards the enemy to inflict damage. It's something I just recently discovered and is also really freaking cool. Let's get to the bosses. There are 3. This weird dragging-like creature, a long-fingered Kung Fung master. Yes, it's called Kung Fung. Don't ask me why. And then Morbus himself. But the game's biggest challenge comes from its brutal difficulty curve and lack of a save system. You gotta beat it in one go. And the levels ramp up fast, forcing you to learn the mechanic quickly if you want to survive. Now we can talk about the endings. You see, when I played Comix Zone as a kid, I never beat it. I always got stuck on level 5. Now as an adult, with access to the internet, I finally pushed through and reached the final stage, where I promptly got the bad ending. You see, the ending revolves around General Elise, this random character who mostly just gives sketch orders throughout the game. In the last moments, Morbus captures her, throws her inside a missile, and you have to defeat him before she drowns. If she dies, you get the bad ending. If you save her, you get the good ending. Which, take a look at the good ending if you don't mind spoilers. It honestly isn't all that spectacular. Okay, so just ignore the who knows story, and the gameplay is honestly pretty fun. The story, in my opinion, serves to explain why you're going to place. Poorly, but it explains it. And the combat is really enjoyable. It's a game I can turn on and beat in like 45 minutes to an hour when I'm bored of programming games, and just have a blast. It's no longer on Steam, but it's still available on Xbox and was recently added to the Switch Online service. It's also on GBA, but honestly, who's gonna buy the Game Boy Advance version of this game nowadays? But if you're looking for fun, challenge, and a Genesis title with great replayability, Comic Zone is a good game to look up. It's brutal, but go to your Internet Archive, get the manual, read up, and you'll have an easier time. I highly recommend Comic Zone for anyone, really. Okay guys, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This is a part I didn't script, but I did forget to mention in the video that Comic Zone did ship with a CD. I'll definitely look that up on YouTube, as it actually has lyrical versions of the tracks contained in the game, and some of these are actually pretty decent. Next, I'm leaving links to my Discord server in the description. If YouTube won't let me do that, I'll put it in a comment. And I really appreciate you tuning in. Consider liking, subscribing, and joining the Discord server if you like talking about old video games and game design stuff. And I'll be doing my Doom Ports video soon, and if you have any recommendations as to any games you'd like me to look into, especially older games, I would very much appreciate it. Troy Schultz, aka the Anti-Gamer Slayer, out.